The station never truly slept. Even in the night cycle, lights stayed soft in the halls, vents hummed like distant wind, and the metal bones of the academy carried the quiet throb of engines that kept everyone alive between the stars. Eli Mercer lay on his narrow bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling panel above him. It was supposed to look like a sky. The academy had chosen a calm pattern, faint stars, a gentle blue haze, a slow drift of fake clouds. Most cadets said it helped. Eli thought it was just another reminder that nothing here was real, not in the way Earth was real. He should have been asleep. Tomorrow's schedule was full. Xenobiology lab, teamwork drills, then a cultural integration seminar that always felt like a polite way to say, "Try not to embarrass your species." Eli had sat through enough of those to understand the unspoken message. Humans were guests. Humans were new. Humans were being watched. He turned onto his side, careful not to let the bed creak. The room was small, built for two, with a partition in the middle that gave each roommate a private sleeping space. Eli's side held a desk, a locker, and a data console mounted to the wall. On the other side, his roommate's area looked almost empty to human eyes. No blankets, no pillow, no personal clutter. Just a smooth, low platform and a neatly stacked set of tools that looked like they belonged in a lab, not a bedroom. Eli breathed out slowly and told himself again that he was fine. The truth was simple and annoying. He was worried. He wasn't worried about tests or alien classmates or being laughed at for the way he ate food. He was worried about what sat in the hidden directory of his console, wrapped in layers of encryption like a secret folded inside another secret. A design file, a prototype plan. A theory that might get him expelled if the wrong person saw it. He had told himself he would stop. He had promised himself he would focus on the official program. He had even deleted parts of the work twice, then recovered them from a backup because his hands moved faster than his caution. Now it was late. The station's quiet made his thoughts louder. Eli slid out of bed and moved to his desk. He didn't turn on the main light. He only tapped the console awake, letting it glow dimly. The interface recognized him and unlocked. A soft chime sounded, too loud in the dark, so he muted it. He stared at the icons. He could shut it down. He could sleep. He could pretend tomorrow would be normal. Instead, he opened the hidden folder. A clean schematic appeared, a compact device meant to sit against the skin at the base of the neck, paired with a thin band that wrapped around the forearm. On paper, it looked harmless, like a medical monitor. But the notes beside it were not harmless. Adaptive neural feedback, rapid learning loop, pattern recognition acceleration, survival response reinforcement. Eli rubbed his eyes. His heart felt like it was being squeezed gently, not enough to hurt, but enough to remind him it was there. Humans had been accepted into the alliance because they were useful, not because they were admired. A few human diplomats had done the talking, smiling and promising cooperation. The alliance had nodded, polite and careful. Then the academy had opened a program for emerging species, and humans had rushed to join as if the station itself were a ladder to the stars. Eli had joined for one reason. He wanted to prove that humans weren't just visitors who needed help. He had watched aliens train in environments that would kill a human in minutes, gravity chambers that would crush a spine, ice drills that froze blood in veins, chemical simulations that would melt human lungs, and he had listened to instructors speak about human limitations in the same tone a person used to talk about weather, a fact, not an insult. Eli didn't want to be limited, so he worked. He didn't steal classified alliance tech. He didn't break into secure labs. He used what the academy taught. He used legal materials. He tested ideas in theory and in small, harmless simulations. But he knew the academy rules. Personal experiments that involved neurological manipulation were restricted. Even discussing them could trigger an investigation. He had been careful, he had been quiet, he had been alone. A faint sound came from the other side of the partition. Eli froze, he listened. His roommate was normally silent. His species, Cathari, moved smoothly, almost without noise, and slept in short, planned rest cycles. Eli had never heard him toss or sigh. Most nights, Eli forgot the Cathari was even there. Now there was a soft scrape, then another. Eli's fingers hovered above the console. He could close it, he should close it. A shadow moved across the partition gap, tall and narrow. Eli swallowed. The door to Eli's side of the room was locked. The academy used privacy seals, and every cadet had authority over their assigned space. Even roommates were not supposed to enter each other's side without permission. It was a rule meant to reduce conflict between species with different habits. The privacy seal made a faint click. Eli's eyes widened. That click meant one of two things. Either the seal had been overridden by station security, or someone with authorized access had forced it open. Then the door slid aside with a whisper. A figure stepped into Eli's space. The Cathari didn't look like a monster. If anything, he looked like a careful drawing brought to life, tall, thin, gray-blue skin with a faint shimmer like metal dust under the light. His face was smooth, with narrow eyes that reflected the console glow. He wore the standard academy uniform, but he had adjusted it to his body, adding straps that held tools and a small data pad. His name was Ralvin, though Eli still heard it as Ral because the Cathari syllables were hard for human tongues. Ralvin stared at Eli with an intensity that made Eli's skin tighten. Then in precise translated English, Ralvin said, "I can help you with it, human." Eli's brain stalled. His mouth opened, but no sound came out for a moment. Then he managed, What are you doing in here?" Ralvin stepped closer. His movements were controlled, but there was urgency in the way his shoulders held tension, like a bow pulled tight. "You are awake," Ralvin said, as if that explained everything. "That's not the point," Eli whispered sharply. He glanced toward the hallway, imagining a security drone floating past and seeing this. "You can't just— My door, how did you open my door?" Ralvin lifted one hand. Between his fingers was a small, flat device no bigger than a coin. "Override key, for emergencies." "Where did you get that?" Ralvin blinked once. "I made it." Eli stared. "You made an override key for my privacy seal." Ralvin's expression didn't change. "Yes. That's not Ral, that's not allowed." Ralvin tilted his head slightly. "It is not allowed to break into a room. It is allowed to respond to risk indicators. The Academy Health Monitoring System flagged your biosignals. You were designated as distressed. The assigned roommate is instructed to respond." Eli's pulse thudded harder. "My biosignals." Ralvin stepped even closer, and Eli realized with a small shock that the alien was holding his own data pad open, projecting lines of numbers and graphs. Eli didn't understand half of them, but the red warnings were clear enough. "Your heart rate elevated beyond the expected range for rest cycle," Ralvin said. "Your respiration was shallow, your stress chemicals increased, your micromovements suggest repeated wake cycles. Your pupil dilation has remained abnormal for," he paused, checking the screen, "16 standard days." Eli's mouth went dry. "You've been watching me?" Ralvin answered immediately. "Yes." Eli felt heat rise up his neck. "That's creepy." Ralvin considered the word. "Creepy implies threat. This was analysis for safety." "I'm safe," Eli said, though the lie tasted thin. I have trouble sleeping sometimes. Humans do that." Ralvin's eyes narrowed slightly. "Humans remain awake due to problems." "Sometimes," Eli admitted. "Then you have a problem," Ralvin said. "I can help you with it." Eli's fingers twitched toward the console. He realized too late that the schematic was still open. The glow reflected in Ralvin's eyes. The alien's gaze shifted from Eli's face to the screen. Ralvin's head tilted again. "What is that?" Eli's stomach dropped. He moved quickly, closing the window, but it was too late. Ralvin had already seen enough to recognize that it was not a standard academy assignment. Ralvin stepped to the side as if trying to position himself for a better view. "Open it again." "No." Ralvin looked at Eli with the calm of a machine. "Open it again." Eli stood up from the chair. He was not tall, not compared to a Cathari, but the sudden movement was a human warning all the same. "Get out." Ralvin didn't back away. "If you are doing unauthorized work that may harm you, it is my responsibility to intervene." "It's not going to harm me." "You do not know that," Ralvin said. "Humans often proceed without certainty." Eli's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." Ralvin's tone remained even. "Fairness is irrelevant. Survival is relevant." Eli stared at him. In the dim room, the alien's smooth face was almost unreadable, but there was something in his posture, something like focus, like a predator deciding whether a jump was worth it. Eli forced himself to breathe slowly. He didn't want to escalate. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want the academy involved. "Ral," Eli said quietly, "you don't understand. This is personal." Ralvin stepped closer until he stood beside the desk. His eyes flicked to the console again. "Personal work that increases your stress and disrupts your rest cycle is not stable. It will lead to performance reduction. It may lead to injury. Eli swallowed. It's not dangerous. It's just a concept. Ralvin's fingers hovered over the console edge, not touching. You are lying. Eli flinched. I'm not lying. Ralvin blinked slowly. Your skin temperature increased by 2 degrees, your vocal pitch shifted, your eyes moved to the console and then away. This indicates deception. Eli felt trapped. He had always known the Cathari were good at reading patterns. They were famous for it. Their diplomats could detect lies better than most machines. Eli had laughed about it once in class. Now it wasn't funny. I just want to work, Eli said. That's all. Ralvin leaned slightly closer. Then let me help you work. Your output will improve. Eli let out a quiet, frustrated breath. You broke into my room at midnight to improve my output? Ralvin responded as if this was obvious. Yes. Eli stared at him, half angry, half stunned. That's insane. Ralvin's eyes narrowed in a way that might have been confusion. Why? Eli rubbed his forehead. Because humans we don't do this. We don't break into each other's rooms because someone is stressed. Ralvin considered. Then humans allow stress to grow until failure occurs. Sometimes, Eli admitted again because he couldn't deny it. Ralvin nodded once as if that confirmed a theory. That is inefficient. Eli almost laughed, but it came out as a sharp exhale. You're not wrong, but you're also not helpful right now. Ralvin's gaze stayed steady. Open the file. Eli hesitated. He should refuse. He should stand his ground. He should call security and report Ralvin for violating privacy, for hacking, for making an override key. If he did that, Ralvin would be punished. Eli's problem would also be solved, because he would never have the courage to keep working under investigation. But Eli didn't want to destroy someone's academy career over one midnight mistake, even if that mistake was huge. And a deeper truth pressed against his ribs. Ralvin was not acting from malice. He was acting from a kind of alien loyalty, twisted through logic. Eli stared at the blank console screen, then at Ralvin. What if I show you, Eli said slowly, and you promise not to report it? Ralvin paused. A promise is a social construct. Eli's shoulders sagged. Of course it is. Ralvin continued. However, I can state an intention. I will not report if the project does not endanger you or others. That's not enough, Eli said. Ralvin's eyes reflected the console's dim light. Then do not show me. Eli's throat tightened. It sounded like a choice, but it was. If Eli didn't show him, Ralvin would remain suspicious. Suspicious aliens talked. Talk turned into reports. Reports turned into investigations. Eli made a decision he didn't like. He tapped the console and reopened the hidden folder. The schematic returned. Ralvin's eyes moved across it quickly, scanning like a camera. He didn't speak for several long seconds. Eli's heartbeat seemed loud in the silence. Ralvin finally said, "This is neurological interface design." Eli nodded once. "Yeah." Ralvin leaned closer to the screen. "It is not a medical monitor." "No," Ralvin's voice tightened slightly. "It is a cognitive acceleration loop." Eli swallowed. "Not exactly." Ralvin looked at him. "Explain." Eli hesitated. Then he spoke, choosing simple words because complicated words would only make him sound guilty. "Humans adapt," Eli said. "That's what we do. We don't have claws or armor. We don't have natural poison filters. We don't have the things other species have, but we learn fast. We survive in bad places. We change. That's our strength." Ralvin watched him without blinking. Eli continued, "The Alliance says humans are fragile because we can't handle extreme conditions like you can. But what if we could train faster? What if we could take the way humans learn under pressure and make it stronger, not permanent, not a weapon, just support?" Ralvin looked back at the schematic. "You wish to enhance survival response." "Yes," Eli said softly, "so humans aren't always the weak ones in the room." Ralvin's gaze stayed fixed on the file. "This violates Academy ethics restrictions." Eli's face tightened. "I know." Ralvin's finger hovered over a line of notes, the translator capturing his words carefully. "Neural feedback loops can cause damage, hallucination, identity fracture, cognitive collapse." Eli felt cold. "That's why I've been careful." Ralvin turned his head slightly, looking at Eli again. "Have you tested it?" Eli hesitated just long enough. Ralvin's eyes narrowed. "You have tested it." Eli's voice lowered. "Only in simulations, mostly, and in a very small way." Ralvin's posture stiffened. "Define small." Eli's hands clenched. "I ran it through a safe nerve pattern, not the whole loop, just the recognition piece. It had helped me in the drills, a little." Ralvin stared. Eli rushed to add, "It didn't hurt. I didn't feel anything strange." It was like everything around me slowed down for a moment and I saw choices faster. That's all. Ralvin remained still, processing. Eli felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. He had confessed more than he meant to. The truth was out. There was no way to pull it back. Ralvin's voice came out quieter. "Your stress is from fear of discovery." "Partly," Eli admitted. Ralvin looked down at his data pad. "Your stress is also from uncertainty. You do not know if your design is safe." Eli swallowed. "Yeah." Ralvin's eyes lifted again, sharp. "Then my assistance is necessary." Eli stared at him. "You're seriously offering to help?" Ralvin tilted his head. "You are attempting to solve a human problem, the perception of weakness. You are doing it alone. That is illogical." Two minds increase success probability. Eli let out a bitter laugh. "You know it could get us both in trouble." Ralvin's reply was immediate. "Yes, and you still want to help." Ralvin paused, and Eli saw something interesting, just a brief hesitation like a crack in perfect logic. Ralvin said, "Humans are assigned to be observed. Many species assume you will fail under pressure. That assumption creates risk. If humans fail, alliance stability is reduced. It is logical to increase your chance of success." Eli searched Ralvin's face. "That's your reason?" Ralvin's gaze didn't flinch. "It is one reason." Eli waited, but Ralvin didn't add more. Eli's voice softened. "What's the other reason?" Ralvin blinked slowly. "You share a living space with me." Eli's chest tightened in a way he didn't expect. It wasn't exactly warmth, but it was close. He nodded once. "Okay, if you help, you can't tell anyone, not instructors, not your people." "No one," Ralvin's eyes held his. "I will not speak of it unless harm becomes probable." Eli grimaced. "That's the best I'm going to get, isn't it?" Ralvin nodded once. Eli exhaled. "Fine." Ralvin stepped closer to the console, his long fingers moving with careful precision. He didn't touch yet. He waited for Eli's permission, which was strange and almost respectful, considering he had forced the door. Eli gave a small nod. Ralvin tapped the screen, zooming in on the schematic. He pointed to a section. "This feedback timing is too aggressive. It will overload human neural pathways." Eli frowned. "It's based on the Cathari training bands. Your species uses a similar loop for reflex improvement." Ralvin nodded. "Yes, but Cathari brains have redundant stabilizer folds." Eli's eyebrows lifted. "Stabilizer folds." Ralvin's eyes narrowed slightly, as if realizing Eli didn't know. "You did not research Cathari neurostructure." Eli's cheeks warmed. "I didn't have access to that information." Ralvin looked at him, then at the file again. "I have access." Eli stared. "You have access to Cathari medical data?" Ralvin answered calmly. "I am Cathari. My own structure data is stored in my personal health records. I can share it." Eli hesitated. That was sensitive. "Wouldn't that be private?" Ralvin tilted his head. "Privacy is variable. Risk reduction is valuable." Eli shook his head slowly. "You really are built different." Ralvin didn't react to the phrase. He continued analyzing. "You also have an error in the sensor placement. The human neck nerve cluster differs from the standard model you used." Eli frowned. "I used the human anatomy files from the academy." Ralvin pointed to a line. "Those files are simplified for general education." Eli stared at the screen, then at Ralvin. "So you broke into my room and now you're telling me my data is too basic?" Ralvin nodded. "Yes." Eli let out a small, tired laugh. The absurdity of it finally pushed through his fear. "Okay, fine, fix it." Ralvin's fingers moved, making adjustments with surprising skill. His touch was light and the console responded. He edited timing intervals, shifted sensor points, and added a stabilizer algorithm that looked like a woven net of code. Eli watched, stunned. "How do you know this?" Ralvin didn't look up. "Cathari younglings are taught pattern stabilization at early ages. It reduces emotional spikes." Eli blinked. "Emotional spikes?" Ralvin paused, his eyes lifted to Eli. "Humans have frequent emotional spikes." Eli's mouth tightened. "Yeah, we do." Ralvin returned to the screen. "Your design attempts to amplify the survival spike. That will increase instability." Eli leaned closer. "But that spike is what helps. Humans do crazy things in emergencies. We lift heavy objects, we run when we should collapse. It's like there's a hidden gear." Ralvin's fingers paused above the screen. He seemed to consider Eli's words carefully. "Your species accesses extreme performance states under threat." "Yes," Eli said. "So what if we could access a controlled version, not just panic, not just fear, a calm survival mode?" Ralvin's voice remained measured. Then you would become more effective, but you would also become more dangerous. Eli stared at him. Dangerous? Ralvin looked at him fully now. Humans in threat states can ignore pain, ignore fatigue, ignore social restrictions. That is why your species is feared. Eli blinked, surprised. Feared by who? Ralvin's eyes narrowed slightly. By those who study you. Eli swallowed. The academy lectures had always felt like polite smiles over sharp opinions, but hearing it bluntly made his stomach twist. Ralvin continued, your species has no natural weapons, but you are capable of improvised destruction. You also bond quickly and fight for bonds. This is irrational but effective. Eli's throat tightened. We fight for people. Ralvin nodded. Yes. That is why I entered your space. Eli stared. Because you're bonding? Ralvin held his gaze for a second too long, then he looked away to the console. Because the monitoring system flagged distress. Eli didn't push further. He wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Ralvin finished a set of changes and leaned back. These modifications increase stability by 30%. Eli stared at the new numbers on the screen. How can you tell? Ralvin tapped his data pad. I ran a probability simulation. Eli's eyes widened. Right now. Ralvin nodded. It took 12 seconds. Eli shook his head slowly. Humans would take 12 hours. Ralvin said. Humans would argue for 12 hours. Eli snorted softly despite himself. That too. For a moment, the tension eased. The room felt less like a trap and more like a strange late-night lab, but then Eli remembered the bigger danger. Ral, Eli whispered, even if we improve it, I can't test it here. Ralvin looked at him. Why? Because if the Academy detects it, I'm done, Eli said. And you're done too. Ralvin's gaze was steady. Then we must reduce detection probability. Eli's stomach sank again. That sounds like crime. Ralvin's expression remained calm. It is rule violation, yes. Eli rubbed his face. I didn't plan on involving anyone. Ralvin said, you already did, when you allowed your stress to be flagged. Eli stared at him, then looked away. He hated that Ralvin was right. Ralvin continued, you also require rest. Your cognitive function is degrading. Eli's voice turned bitter. I know, I'm tired. But I can't stop thinking. Ralvin leaned slightly forward. Then I will assist your thinking, you will sleep after. Eli hesitated. The responsible thing was to end this conversation, lock his files, and sleep, but the responsible thing had not helped him. It had only made him feel trapped. He nodded slowly. Okay, help me. Ralvin's eyes focused. Explain your final goal. Eli swallowed and spoke carefully. Humans can't match the Alliance species physically, but we can match them in adaptability. I want a device that helps a human learn a hostile environment faster, not by changing the body permanently, just by improving perception and reaction during training, so humans can keep up. Ralvin listened. So it is training assistance. Yes, Ralvin tilted his head. You named it? Eli looked embarrassed. I called it Sentry. Ralvin repeated the word, translator smoothing the sound. Sentry, a guard. Yeah, Eli said quietly. A guard in your head, something that says, pay attention, this matters. Ralvin nodded. Acceptable. Eli blinked. Acceptable, Ralvin said. Names influence emotion. This name is stable. Eli let out a small breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Ralvin pointed at the algorithm lines again. Your loop must include an off switch that cannot be overridden by your own will. Eli frowned. Why? Ralvin's eyes sharpened. Humans override safety when pride is involved. Eli opened his mouth to protest, then stopped. He thought of how many times he had told himself he would stop, then continued anyway. Fine, Eli admitted. Ralvin's fingers moved again, adding a kill switch protocol. This will deactivate if neural variance exceeds safe range. Eli watched. So if my brain starts acting weird, it shuts off. Yes, Eli nodded slowly. Good. Ralvin then paused. His gaze shifted to the corner of Eli's desk where a small sealed food container sat. Inside were human snack bars Eli kept for late-night energy. Ralvin pointed. You consumed sugar bars at late cycle. Eli stared. How do you know that? Ralvin's eyes went to the data pad. Biometrics show glucose spike. Eli sighed. Yeah, sometimes it helps me focus. Ralvin said, it disrupts sleep. Eli raised his hand slightly. Okay, doctor. Ralvin's gaze returned to Eli. You are not a machine. Your cognition requires cycles. You cannot force productivity indefinitely. Eli's jaw tightened, but his eyes stung slightly. He hated how true it was. I'm trying. but it feels like if I stop, humans lose. Ralvin's head tilted. Humans will not lose because one cadet sleeps. Eli let out a humorless laugh. You don't get it. Ralvin stared at him. Explain. Eli looked down at his hands. His fingers were trembling faintly, not from fear of Ralvin now, but from the weight of everything he had been carrying. When humans arrived, Eli said softly, we had to be perfect. Our diplomats had to smile, our scientists had to impress, our cadets had to behave. Because if we don't just look bad, we become proof of what everyone already assumes, that we don't belong. Ralvin watched him, silent. Eli continued, and I hear it, in the way people talk. Humans are brave but reckless. Humans are creative but unstable. Humans have potential but need supervision. I'm tired of but. Ralvin's eyes narrowed slightly as if the word but held a pattern he was measuring. Eli swallowed. So yeah. One cadet sleeping won't end humanity, but it feels like we're all carrying something heavy, and if I can lighten it, I should. Ralvin remained still for a long moment. Then he said, this is irrational. Eli's face tightened. Thanks. Ralvin added immediately, it is also consistent. Humans use individual effort to support group identity. This increases unity. Eli blinked. That sounded almost like respect. Ralvin looked back to the console. Then your project goal is not only performance, it is pride. Eli didn't deny it. Ralvin's voice softened slightly, a rare change. Pride can be useful, it can also blind. Eli nodded slowly. I know. Ralvin finished the last adjustments and saved a new version of the file under a different code name. Eli frowned. Why did you rename it? Ralvin said. If the system scans for unusual keywords, Sentry may be flagged. The new name is Study Module 7. Eli stared. That's painfully boring. Ralvin nodded. Boring reduces attention. Eli couldn't help it. He laughed quietly. It felt strange to laugh in a moment like this, but it also felt like pressure releasing from a valve. Ralvin waited for the laughter to end, then said, now you will sleep. Eli blinked. What? Ralvin pointed at the biometrics again. Your stress is reduced. Your file is stabilized. You have a plan. Sleep will improve function. Eli hesitated. Part of him wanted to keep talking, keep working, keep pushing, but another part, the part that had been tired for weeks, wanted to obey. He looked at the console, then at Ralvin. You're going to leave, Ralvin's eyes held his. Yes, Eli swallowed. And you're not going to break in again? Ralvin paused. If distress flags again, I may. Eli sighed. Great. Ralvin added, however, I will attempt a different approach. Eli frowned. Like what? Ralvin looked thoughtful for a second. I will knock. Eli blinked, surprised, then let out a small laugh. Okay, that's an improvement. Ralvin turned toward the door, then paused as if remembering something. He looked back at Eli. One more statement. Eli's heart jumped slightly. Yeah, Ralvin's voice was steady. You are not weak. Eli stared at him, caught off guard. What? Ralvin continued. You are limited in some physical tolerances, but you are not weak. You persist. That is strength. Eli didn't know what to say. His throat felt tight. Ralvin seemed to interpret the silence as confusion. This is not emotional comfort. It is an observation. Eli managed a shaky smile. Right, sure, observation. Ralvin nodded once, satisfied, and stepped out. The door slid closed behind him, and Eli heard the faint click of the privacy seal re-engaging. Eli stood there for a long moment, staring at the closed door, then at the console. The new file name glowed on the screen, boring and safe and somehow comforting. He shut the console down. He sat on the edge of his bed and tried to understand what had just happened. An alien had hacked his door, confronted him, exposed his secret, and then improved his work and told him he wasn't weak. Eli shook his head slowly. If he told anyone, they would think he was lying or losing his mind. He lay down. The fake sky above him drifted gently, clouds sliding across stars that weren't real. But for the first time in days, his chest felt lighter. As he closed his eyes, one last thought rose in his mind, clear and sharp. Humans weren't alone here anymore, and maybe, just maybe, that was the real advantage. Eli's breathing slowed. The station hummed softly around him. On the other side of the partition, Ralvin moved quietly back to his own space, his posture still tense, as if his mind was already running simulations. Eli didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if their secret would survive the Academy's watchful systems. He didn't know if Study Module 7 would become a breakthrough or a disaster. But he knew one thing with a strange certainty. Whatever happened next, it wouldn't be just Eli against the galaxy. And that thought finally carried him into sleep. Morning cycle arrived slowly on the academy station, lights brightening in soft layers as if the station itself was waking up. Eli opened his eyes before the alarm sounded. For a moment he felt confused, unsure why his chest felt lighter than usual. Then memory returned, the midnight conversation, the unexpected help, the alien standing in his room telling him he was not weak. He sat up quickly and looked toward his desk. The console remained dark, exactly where he had left it. Nothing looked disturbed. For a second, Eli wondered if the whole thing had been a dream created by exhaustion. Then he heard movement from the other side of the partition. Ralvin's voice came calmly through the translator band he always wore. "You woke 3 minutes before scheduled alarm. That indicates improved rest quality." Eli let out a slow breath. Not a dream. "Morning to you too," Eli muttered, running a hand through his hair. He stood and stretched. His body still felt tired but not crushed. The difference surprised him. He had slept deeper than he expected. He glanced toward the partition. "You didn't report anything, right?" Ralvin stepped around the divider. His posture was upright as always. "No report was submitted." Eli nodded slowly. Relief spread through him, mixed with a new kind of nervous energy. The secret still existed between them, fragile and dangerous. Ralvin studied him carefully. "Your heart rate increased when you asked that question." "Fear remains high." "Well, yeah," Eli said. "We're breaking rules." Ralvin tilted his head slightly. "Correction, you are breaking rules. I am assisting." Eli snorted. "Pretty sure that counts." Ralvin did not argue. They prepared for the day in quiet coordination. Eli packed his datapad and uniform tools. Ralvin adjusted a thin wrist device that monitored his own species-specific needs. The normal routine felt strange now that they shared a secret. When they stepped into the hallway, the academy was already alive with movement. Aliens of different shapes and colors moved past, tall reptilian cadets, floating beings surrounded by faint light fields, heavy armored species that clanked softly as they walked. Eli still felt the same subtle weight of being watched. Humans were rare here. Some species stared openly curious, others barely noticed him. They walked toward the training wing. "Today," Ralvin said, "you have adaptive environment drills." Eli nodded. "Yeah, heat chamber first." Ralvin glanced at him. "Humans have low tolerance for extreme heat compared to several species present." "Thanks for the reminder," Eli said dryly. Ralvin's eyes narrowed slightly. "This is relevant to your project." Eli swallowed. It was. Every time he failed to keep up in physical environments, the idea of sentry felt more urgent. Inside the training hall, instructors directed cadets into groups. The heat chamber simulated a desert environment with shifting temperatures and unpredictable terrain. The goal was simple: cross the chamber without collapsing. Eli entered with a group of mixed species. The door sealed behind them and heat rose immediately. Dry air pressed against his skin. Sweat formed within minutes. Some aliens moved effortlessly, their bodies built for extremes. Others struggled, but none as much as the humans usually did. Eli pushed forward, breathing steadily. He focused on each step, remembering the midnight changes Ralvin had suggested. Not physical changes, mental ones. Observe patterns, anticipate shifts. The floor panels changed texture, simulating unstable sand. Eli adjusted his stance, copying the movement of a tall insectoid cadet ahead of him. It worked. He moved faster. He felt a strange clarity, not artificial, just sharper awareness. Maybe it was confidence from having a plan. Maybe it was knowing someone else believed in his work. Halfway through the chamber, heat spiked suddenly. Eli's vision blurred for a second. He slowed, fighting dizziness. A voice behind him said quietly, "Hydration." Ralvin stepped beside him, offering a small pack. He must have finished his own route early and returned. Eli grabbed the pack gratefully. "You didn't have to come back." Ralvin responded calmly. "Your movement pattern predicted collapse within 3 minutes." Eli laughed weakly. "Comforting." They finished together. Outside, Eli leaned against the wall, breathing hard but smiling slightly. He had not been last this time. Ralvin watched him. "Your performance improved by 12% compared to last week." Eli blinked. "You tracked that?" "Yes." Eli shook his head. "You really don't stop analyzing." Ralvin paused. "Humans also analyze, you simply attach emotion to it." Eli smiled faintly. "Maybe." The rest of the morning passed quickly. Classes blurred together, but Eli's thoughts kept returning to the project. Every observation during drills felt like data he could use. During lunch cycle, they sat at a corner table. Eli opened his datapad under the table's surface, hiding the screen from casual view. Ralvin leaned slightly closer. "You are opening the project file in public space." "It's disguised," Eli whispered. "Study Module 7, remember?" Ralvin nodded approvingly. They reviewed the modifications from the night before. Ralvin pointed out timing errors and suggested adjustments to prevent overload. Eli added notes about human emotional response patterns. "Humans rely on intuition," Eli explained quietly. "It's not random. It's fast pattern recognition." Ralvin considered this. "Then the system must amplify intuition without amplifying panic." "Exactly." Ralvin's fingers moved across the screen, adjusting parameters. Eli watched with growing excitement. For the first time, the project felt like something real instead of a desperate idea. After lunch, a notification flashed across Eli's interface. "Training simulation update. Emergency scenario added." He frowned. "That's new." Ralvin's eyes narrowed. "Unscheduled drills indicate evaluation phase." They reported to the simulation chamber. Inside, a large holographic environment formed around them, a damaged station corridor filled with smoke and failing lights. An instructor's voice echoed. "Objective: stabilize environment and evacuate injured units. Begin." Chaos started immediately. Alarms blared, holographic flames blocked pathways. Cadets rushed to assess the situation. Eli felt adrenaline spike. He forced himself to breathe slowly, observe, adapt. He noticed patterns others missed: airflow pushing smoke toward a broken vent, flickering lights indicating power routing, a collapsed beam that could be moved if several cadets worked together. He shouted directions, surprising himself. Others followed. Ralvin watched closely, stepping in when precise calculations were needed. Together they stabilized part of the corridor faster than expected. When the simulation ended, the instructor nodded approvingly. Human Cadet Mercer demonstrated effective improvisation. Eli tried not to grin too much. Later, walking back toward their quarters, Ralvin spoke quietly. "Your decision-making improved." Eli shrugged. "Maybe I'm just getting used to the academy." Ralvin shook his head slightly. "You trusted your instincts." Eli smiled faintly. "Humans do that." Ralvin paused, then said something unexpected. "I am beginning to understand." Back in their room, Eli locked the door carefully. The privacy seal glowed softly. He turned to Ralvin. "We should test the system simulation again." Ralvin nodded. They worked for hours. Eli focused on human behavior models. Ralvin refined the stabilization algorithms. The partnership felt natural now, each filling gaps the other didn't see. At one point, Eli leaned back and laughed softly. "You know, yesterday I thought I was alone in this." Ralvin's eyes remained on the screen. "Humans often assume isolation when help is available." Eli looked at him. "That sounded almost emotional." Ralvin paused. "Observation based on data." Eli grinned. "Sure." They ran another simulation. The results improved dramatically. Eli stared at the numbers. "This could actually work." Ralvin's voice remained calm, but there was something like satisfaction in it. Probability of safe activation increased. Eli's excitement grew, then quickly shifted to fear. "If this works," he said quietly, "someone will notice." Ralvin nodded. "Yes." Silence settled between them. Finally, Eli asked, "Do you ever worry about breaking rules?" Ralvin considered. "Rules exist to maintain order. However, progress sometimes requires deviation." Eli blinked. "That sounds very human." Ralvin tilted his head slightly, as if analyzing the idea. The station lights dimmed slightly, signaling evening cycle approaching. Outside the window, stars drifted slowly. Eli felt something growing, not just hope, but momentum. He looked at the schematic again. "We're getting close," Ralvin said quietly. "Yes, and increased success increases risk." Eli nodded. He knew that, but for the first time, fear did not stop him. Instead, it pushed him forward. And somewhere deep inside, Eli realized something else was changing too. This was no longer just about proving humans belonged. It was about discovering what humans and aliens could become together when they stopped seeing each other as limits and started seeing each other as strengths. The station moved into night cycle again, but this time Eli did not feel the same heavy pressure sitting on his chest. The quiet hum of the academy sounded different now, less like isolation and more like possibility. Still, a nervous energy lived inside him because he knew they were close to something important. The room lights stayed low as he and Ralvin sat across from each other at the desk. The console glowed between them, displaying the newest version of Study Module 7. Lines of code and diagrams flowed slowly across the screen. Eli leaned forward, eyes tired but bright. Simulation success rate is above 70% now, Ralvin nodded. 73.4. Eli smiled faintly. You always have to be exact. Accuracy improves outcomes, Ralvin replied calmly. Eli rested his chin on his hand, staring at the device model. The Sentry interface looked small and simple, but the ideas inside it felt enormous. It wasn't just technology, it was proof that humans could compete without changing who they were. Are we ready? Eli asked quietly. Ralvin paused before answering. His eyes moved over the data carefully. The system is stable in controlled simulation. Real testing introduces unknown variables. That's a fancy way of saying maybe, Eli said. Yes. Eli exhaled slowly. The thought of activating it for real made his stomach tighten. The Academy rules echoed in his head, reminding him of consequences. Before he could speak again, a sharp chime sounded from the wall. Both of them froze. Another chime followed, louder this time. The lights shifted to emergency red. Ralvin's posture changed instantly, shoulders straight, eyes focused. Station alert. A calm but urgent voice filled the room. All cadets remain in assigned zones. Engineering malfunction detected in Sector 4. Response teams assembling. Eli stood quickly. Sector 4, that's near the training wing. Ralvin checked his datapad. Environmental systems failing. Oxygen levels unstable. Eli's heart sped up. The simulation from earlier flashed through his mind, damaged corridors, failing systems, but this was real. They moved into the hallway with other cadets gathering around display panels. The air felt tense. Instructors are being called, someone said nearby. A reptilian cadet added, engineering response delayed. Ralvin's eyes flicked toward Eli. They both thought the same thing. Delay meant danger. Eli swallowed. We should stay out of it. Ralvin studied him. You do not believe that? Eli looked away. He didn't, not really. Another announcement sounded. Sector 4, environmental stability decreasing. Volunteers with engineering or adaptive training are requested. Eli's feet moved before his mind fully agreed. Ralvin followed immediately. They arrived at a control point where instructors coordinated cadets. Smoke indicators flashed across holographic displays. Several corridors had sealed automatically, trapping people inside sections. An instructor noticed them. Cadet Mercer, Cadet Ralvin, adaptive training qualified? Yes, Eli answered. The instructor nodded toward a console. Assist with manual system stabilization. Automated systems aren't responding correctly. Eli stepped forward, adrenaline surging. This was real danger. Real lives depending on quick thinking. He studied the display. The environmental system cycled too slowly, reacting seconds too late to pressure changes. It reminded him of something like a mind that reacted after the moment passed, like humans compared to faster species. Ralvin began analyzing data streams rapidly. Response delay originates in pattern prediction algorithm. Eli frowned. The system isn't adapting fast enough. Yes, Eli felt a strange realization forming. The Sentry concept, rapid adaptation, faster recognition, wasn't just for humans. It could help here. His heart raced. No, that was reckless. This was not the time to experiment. But the system continued failing. The room filled with worried voices. Another alert sounded. Oxygen levels dropping in one trapped corridor. Eli's hands trembled slightly. He thought of the project, of pride, of proving humans were more than fragile newcomers. He looked at Ralvin. Ralvin's eyes met his. The alien seemed to understand without words. You are considering using your design, Ralvin said quietly. Eli swallowed. It could help us think faster, solve this. It is untested. I know. Silence hung between them for a second that felt like an hour. Ralvin spoke softly. Risk is high, Eli nodded, but doing nothing feels worse. Ralvin studied him carefully. Then he said something that surprised Eli. I will assist. Eli blinked. You're sure? Yes. They moved to a side console, partially shielded from others. Eli pulled up Study Module 7, hands shaking slightly. He activated only the smallest part, the perception enhancement loop. Not full power, just enough to help focus. The interface synced with his wristband. Monitoring your neural patterns, Ralvin said calmly. If instability rises, I will deactivate. Eli nodded. He activated it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the world felt sharper, not faster exactly, but clearer. Sounds separated into layers. Movements around him slowed just enough for him to understand patterns. The flashing alerts became readable instead of overwhelming. The system failure looked less like chaos and more like a puzzle. Eli stepped to the main console. The algorithm predicts environmental changes based on outdated patterns, he said quickly. We need to shift it to reactive learning. The instructor frowned. Explain. Eli's mind worked rapidly. Words came easier. The system waits for confirmation before adjusting. Humans improvise, we guess before knowing. We need that here. Ralvin added precise technical terms, translating Eli's intuition into logic. Together, they rewrote a small portion of the environmental algorithm. Eli's hands moved confidently, guided by instinct. The system updated. For a tense second, nothing changed. Then oxygen levels stabilized slightly. The room filled with relieved murmurs. The instructor stared at them. Good work. Continue. Eli felt a rush of emotion, excitement, fear, pride all mixed together. The sentry loop hummed quietly in his mind, keeping his focus sharp. More problems appeared. He solved them one by one, each adjustment faster than the last. Ralvin monitored him closely. Neural activity increasing but within safe range. Eli nodded without looking away from the screen. Minutes passed that felt like seconds. Finally, the emergency alert softened. Environmental systems stabilizing, the station voice announced. A wave of relief spread through the room. Eli stepped back slowly, breathing hard. Ralvin deactivated the interface gently. Enough! The sharp clarity faded. The world felt heavier again, but normal. Eli leaned against the console, overwhelmed. The instructor approached. Cadet Mercer, your approach was unconventional. Explain your reasoning. Eli hesitated. He could not reveal everything. I just looked for patterns, he said carefully. Humans are good at adapting. The instructor nodded slowly, thoughtful. After the emergency ended, cadets dispersed. Some praised Eli quietly, others watched him with new curiosity. As they walked back toward their quarters, Eli felt exhausted but alive. You saved lives, Ralvin said. We saved lives, Eli corrected. Ralvin paused slightly, as if processing the word we. Back in their room, Eli sat heavily on his bed. Did I push too far? He asked quietly. Ralvin considered. You accepted risk for benefit. That is a human trait. Is that good or bad? Ralvin's eyes softened slightly. Both. Eli laughed weakly. Silence settled between them, comfortable this time. After a moment, Ralvin said, Today demonstrated something important. What? Your species does not succeed by matching others' strengths. You succeed by combining intuition with logic. Eli thought about that. Maybe, he said softly. Ralvin stepped toward the door, then stopped. He turned back. I will ask permission next time, he said. Eli smiled. Next time you break into my room? Ralvin nodded seriously. Yes. Eli laughed again, louder this time. Outside, the stars moved slowly beyond the window. The Academy continued its endless journey through space. Eli lay back, staring at the ceiling sky. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most advanced, but tonight proved something different. Humans changed the game not by becoming like others, but by bringing something new. And maybe that was what HFY truly meant. Not humans standing alone, but humans daring to reach forward even when afraid and finding unexpected allies reaching back.